back to the Loved and Sent webinar. Today, we have something really special planned for you guys. I can't wait to get into today's program. I am Jane Schmatzer, the Director of Adult Ministry for CTA. And today I am joined by Lauren Thorburg-Kreienkamp. Lauren, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Lauren has been living the Loved and Sent lifestyle for a number of years, actually, since the very beginning of there even being a Loved and Sent lifestyle. You are a member of Christ Memorial Lutheran Church here in town, which is where the whole program kicked off. And so today we're just excited to hear how Loved and Sent, being on that journey, has changed your life. So
Absolutely.
thanks for being willing to share that. If you could, Lauren, if you could go all the way back, I think it's been like close to 16 years now when the book first came out, and as a congregation, you were all reading it together and processing that. Can you remember what it really felt like before that started, the anticipation, and then how that just rolled out for you in your life?
Absolutely. So Jeff and Bobby are very good friends. So Pastor Jeff actually gave me the opportunity to proof the book before it went out. So that was a really unique and fun experience to see it in process and then see the final product. But what was really neat about it was we had a small group at the time out of Pastor Jeff's home. So we all of our different community groups, which is basically everyone in our congregation. They're encouraged to be a part of a community group. And our community group went into the Bible study of Loved and Sent, and it was led by Todd Hodling, who really brought a unique perspective for me as someone who has been a lifelong Christian. Todd was someone who came to faith later in life. So it was really unique to study the book from the perspective of some of us who had been in the church for a very long time, and having Todd and a couple of other members of our community group who had not been a part of the church, and how Love Sent really resonated with us and with them. And to see that process was really fun.
Oh, I'll bet. And I think that that's something that is a bit unique to be in a group with folks that discovered Christ a little bit later in their life journey, and just how different that feels than having been raised from a small child to always believe in Jesus. And it's just such a different perspective. I can only imagine how much fun that was to have
Yes,
those
so that
discussions.
was really unique, and I think Pastor Jeff's voice, his voice in writing, um, is really clear, concise, consistent, and compelling, and so just really, it just really helped us to connect as people too, going through the book and um, really digging deeper into what Loved and Sent means, because it all started as a sermon series for him. So he was doing this 24-hour sermon, and we were all looking at him like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? 24 hours? Like, this seems a little crazy, PJ. And he just he's like, I'm really grappling with these words, and to see where that very first day when he said, I'm thinking about this 24-hour sermon, and to see where that took him with God's word, and taking Loved and Sent and really putting it together in the way that he did. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that
Wow.
answers your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No wrong answers. It's really about everybody's journey with Loved and Sent, I think, will be a little bit different. What I love about yours is that it was from the very, very beginning, and so there was no model that anybody was following. It just very organically grew, and seeped into, I think, the DNA of everybody, and everybody will accept that a little bit differently, right? Or experience that a little bit differently. So, yeah, I'm just excited to hear how it's really impacted on you. You mentioned clear, concise, compelling, consistent, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, and that's also a whole string of C's
Yes.
that Pastor Jeff invites people in his book to develop an answer for what it is they believe and why they believe it, that is clear, concise, compelling, and that they could, give consistently. Um, I think when I read that, that section, the way that he communicated that, I was like, oh, I so totally agree. That is not something that most of us walk around with in our head. Like, if somebody were to ask me today, what do I believe and why do I believe it? I mean, I would have an answer, but would it be clear? Would it be compelling? Would it be concise? Because I'm usually an external processor, I guarantee it wouldn't be concise. So, as you talked about that inside of your group, was that difficult? Was that kind of challenging? Was that something people were excited about? Kind of just
Yes.
give me a perspective there.
It was absolutely daunting because thinking about someone coming up to you and saying, "What do you believe?" I, that doesn't happen every day. That's not
Right.
something um, that you expect to happen. And so to really sit down and grapple with that and think about that was something I think really positive that came out of the book itself. Um, but also Loved and Sent, I feel like gave me um, a confidence about it too.
Mhm.
Um, because my answer is very much like I am loved by God in Christ and I am sent to be the work of his hands
Mhm.
to the people of the world. And so I think also someone's not necessarily going to up and ask you, what do you believe? They're going to
Sure.
see what you're doing and how you're living, and they're going to see that it's different. And that's how they're going to connect with you. And they might then ask you what's different or look to see what's different. And so that Loved and Sent has really helped me say, like, well, I'm loved by Jesus. And so I'm going to show and share his love with you. Um, but then also on the flip side of that, like, I need to first feel the love of Jesus in order to do that. I need to be filled so that I can fill others. Uh,
Mhm.
and so it's just been a really great tool of exercising, excuse me, exercising faith and um, just in everything, learning how to communicate what I believe, learning how to um, really think about faith from the perspective of, like, I'm not just a Christian because I've been a Christian my entire life. It's not
Mhm.
just because my parents took me to church. I own this.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that that's really good. I think it's like it's the same thing in a faith context as it would be in anything else that you're learning or that you're trying to articulate. It's like when you have to actually put it into words is when you begin to really understand what it means for you.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, no, that's really beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that.
I
Um,
just feel like the term evangelism has always been very scary. Like,
mhm.
I think that the idea of evangelism is not bad, but I think um the pressure that we put on that has it's just put too much stress on people to uh, how are you going to share the love of Jesus? And I think Loved and Sent, for me at least, I like gives me terms that helps me to say, like, I'm loved by God and I'm sent by him to share his love with others. That just opens up a whole different set of things for me than like go tell people you love Jesus. Like I do love Jesus and I want to share that with others, but I don't think that that's necessarily the best way to do that. I don't know. Anyway, there's just
Well, it's not a one size fits all.
exactly. Just exactly. The questions that people have are not always the questions that you think they're going to have.
Absolutely. One of the tools that Pastor Jeff talked about early on developing was this really kind of simple bookmark that has some symbols on the front and some lines on the back. And I remember the first time he shared that, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really, because I hadn't read the book yet, and I really wasn't part of processing through that culture. But it's just so very simple. I said, okay, well, I mean, I understand what the symbols on the front are. There's a manger, a cross, and a crown. So I have a sense of what this is, helping me to recall. But I'm not really sure what to do with this bookmark. And so then he began to explain what the bookmark was, why it was developed, and how he hoped that people used it. And it was developed to give people a really quick and easy tip, or a series of he calls them handles, but I would call them like in a moment you could see it and it would recall the aspects of God's story that are important. That God is, came to be with us. He loved us so much that he came to be with us, that he gave his life to rescue us from the sin that we could not rescue ourselves from, and that he lives and reigns in power. And through that power, he strengthens and encourages and sends us. And so I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, just naturally becomes clear, concise, compelling, right? And then I think the way that you use that bookmark was a story that kind of came to me, and it just really captured my heart. And I wanted to have our listeners have a chance to really hear that, and not only just hear the story, but hear it really from you and in your own words.
Oh, sure. The first time we ever saw the bookmark was in community group. Pastor Jeff brought like had huge boxes full of them and he just kind of threw them at us and we were like what in the world is this and the other thing that he does, I've been a confirmation small group leader in the past, and the other thing that he does is he takes the pieces of the bookmark and he puts them out in a timeline about how God's timeline is a part of our timeline, his presence with us, his pardon for us, his power for us and in us. And so the bookmark for me is a really strong reminder of pardon me, a very strong reminder of God's promises for us. And the flip side of the bookmark with the lines and who you put on there or don't put on there, who you might be thinking of and praying for, just having people to consistently pray for, people that you are thinking about, people that you are intentionally bringing to the feet of Jesus, to say, this is on my heart and this is important to me. Lord, please take this and please work in and through me and in and through the people around them. So sorry, I get a little emotional about
That's okay. I mean, at the heart of it, a deep connection with somebody else is probably one of the most personal and emotional things that we experience. So that's extremely authentic. The lines on the back of the bookmark, for anybody who haven't seen them, they are a place for you to record names of people that you are praying for, in essence, but it could also be other things that you were praying for as well. But I love the heart behind it, which is that when you are filled, as you said, like when I'm filled up with Jesus so that I am just compelled to overflow that love to others around us, that's when I think we get a new set of glasses, right? Like I say God's glasses because we can see needs more clearly. We are just more in tune with the people that God has put in our path. And I know that uh, it's not a very large bookmark. It's just a really, really small tool, actually. So you would actually have the opportunity to fill it up fairly quickly. It's not like you get one bookmark for your life.
I have many of them. I can't find any of them at the moment, but I just switched Bibles. I moved all my notes over, and I my old Bible was literally bursting with them, just because we got them at every church event and everything. And so they were falling out of drawers, and it's a really wonderful thing to look back and see those bookmarks and see the reminder of, oh, that person that I was praying for, like those things happened for them. Or I feel so much that God has worked in that person or through me or used me in a way that is helping further his kingdom. Like it's just a very meaningful thing. And to look back at the bookmarks that you've had in the past can be a really powerful tool too, because it reminds you of the I mean, it gives you a little bit of a history of your relationship with God and your relationship with other people.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like a diary of sorts. If you put those bookmarks in chronological order,
Yes.
I can imagine that it would be sort of like watching a movie of your life as you review them. So what a powerful exercise um, they are. Um, One of the other things that I know your church has done since the very beginning is service projects,
Yes.
and kind of just that's part of the way that love just kind of spills out of you and onto and into your community. I'm assuming that you participate in those.
Yes. They're very fun. Love Sent Servant Event is really cool. It's but the thing that I love about it is it's multi-generational. It's a way for our entire church body to connect on a single day and go and show the love of Jesus to our community. Um, and I yeah, so I've done Spensa Soccer before, which is where you go and you're a mentor to a student who's learning how to play soccer. It's children with
Mm.
special needs.
Mhm.
That one was very fun. I did that one a couple years in a row, and then recently we've gone to Green Park Lutheran School and done some beautification projects, which that's near and dear to me. That's where I where I work, but um, it's just really neat to see um how how much participation you get, but also how that it kind of flows into other patterns, because it may encourage you at other times to take part in. I really enjoyed Spensa, so I did some stuff with them outside of Love Sent Servant Event. It just gives people kind of an avenue for connection with community, and can really foster that relationship further than just that one day.
Mhm. Yes, yeah, I can absolutely see that. And I know that we talked with Christy Eberling, who is a big coordinator
Yes.
of that program, and she said that that happens quite frequently, that people might pick a random project, but then find that they just have a deep heart connection to the people that they find there. And so then they find reasons to just keep going back, keep volunteering, and it's a far deeper and more significant connection than just one day. So yeah, it's always great to hear people talk about their individual experiences and how the servant event, just putting their faith in action, but also doing it. I think you said, I love it because it's our whole church. So we can all do things individually, and those have their own form of uh, encouragement for our souls. But I think that when your entire body comes together, there's just a special um, spirit that goes through that. I almost said power, in so many people going out at the same time. And I've also heard that, you mentioned life groups and that everybody at your church is in a small group or a life group. Um, I also heard that sometimes the life groups choose to do something together and just kind of keep trying to do life in every way through the different ways that you can sign up to serve each year. So I love just all the different creative ways that people are finding to express Christ's love in outside of their immediate family and into their neighborhood um, and into the greater community as well. Um, if you could just for a second kind of think about what life was like before Loved and Sent uh, was introduced to your congregation and throughout all the years and all the things, the book, utilizing the bookmarks and the people that God has put in front of you, uh, participating in the servant events, really processing through that with your small group, into all the way through that to today. Um, are there any particular words or phrases that you could think of that would describe how different your perspective is today from what it was before you started this journey?
I think that connected is a really strong word to use to describe where we are after Loved Sent. I'm in kind of a different place because we started community groups about the same time that Loved Sent started as well, and I was just out of college, had come back to my home church that I'd been a member of my entire life, and I didn't really feel connected. I It felt disjointed, and I didn't really feel like I had a place necessarily, even though I knew the people. And community group really brought me back in. We kind of Loved Sent was kind of at the same time. So that entire experience just really helped me reconnect. But also, as someone who has now been a part of a community group for a greater amount of time, I think community groups have been a really positive thing in maintaining connections with some of those kids who have gone away to school, and bringing them back in. And when they're here for the summer, they can maybe join a community group and those people are there for them. And so it's just a really, um, I feel like Loved and Sent has really pushed that even further than where it was when I came back from school. And that's been a very positive thing for our church.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. And I think it's um, the example that you give is really common across churches, is that, even if you grew up in this church as you did your entire life, you went on a schedule that was kind of dictated by your family, right? It wasn't dictated by you. And then you graduate, you go away to college, you make your own schedules, you kind of have your own life. And when you come back to church, it can feel like um, familiar and yet not home, I guess would be the way that I would describe it. And making those connections back and helping people integrate back into that and really owning that for themselves as opposed to owning that as part of your family. That's just a different thing. And I love that uh, you really experienced that and experienced how Loved and Sent really helped kind of supercharge the community group and give you all direction, purpose, and connection all at the same time.
And I'll say this too, our community group, is different now. The group that I was with for the Loved and Sent, like it changed, and we're in a different community group, but we're still in contact with all of the people that were in our first community group, and
Mhm.
still feel really connected to them too. And so it's been nice because, like you said, when you're coming back from somewhere and it feels like home, that just makes everything so much easier. It makes you feel it, you have to be loved to be sent. So in order to feel that love, it needs to feel like home
Mhm.
in order to go out into the world. So
Yeah.
that's
And a
great.
place that you can come back to and be recharged and there's, yeah, that connection is powerful. It's powerful. So yeah, thank you for that. I think that um that's an issue that most churches deal with, is that once kids leave for college, they rarely come back. And sometimes they don't move back home. You know,
Right.
sometimes a lot of times they don't come back because they have moved to a different city. But even when they do come back to the same city, it's not the same point in time. You know, you were in a youth group and not everybody in your youth group is there. So it has a very different feel. And I think that that's a really great piece of advice and wisdom to share with churches who are struggling with that. So an unexpected bonus from today's conversation. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today, Lauren, and just giving us insight into just what it feels like to live within the Loved and Sent journey. You know, accessing, you know, the various tools, but at the heart of it, just the connection and the power that Jesus just gives us when we are in community to go out and to serve in his name. We just really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.